Because when you have an imagination, you can actually start to look beyond the surface of your environment and actually start to question things. You can say why, you can say when, you can say where. You don't just react to conditions and carry on blindly. You actually start to look around and notice things. And when you have an imagination, the other thing that happens is that you get pictures in your head. You start to think about things. You start to look around and you have ideas. How do you share those ideas with other people? You actually start to notice that there are others, that you're in dynamics with others. And once you start to share those ideas with others, through whatever means, you learn and you grow. And it actually is a very important part of growing your conscious awareness of the reality around you, of the part that you play in the environment that you're within. Geometry is the blueprint of the universe. It's the architect's grand scheme. It's incredible it even exists. Who decided it exists? Who laid it out? Because without it, there'd just be chaos. Geometry gives order to our environment. It allows things to happen. If you consider this unmanifest consciousness, how do we actually come into reality? How do things form? How does space form? How does time form? How do we work within time? These incredibly complicated ideas can be actually represented through very, very simple shapes. The structure represented through shapes that then become symbols. Symbols of ideas, symbols of things that we can then share with each other. Now, a symbol is not the same as a sign. A sign is an instruction. A symbol is something that we resonate with at a deep level. We know what it means. It means something more than its form. Symbol. We also then use it as a tool, as a vehicle for working with whatever it represents. And this is what started to happen in the past. We started to use those shapes to build temples. They were the beginning of things like writing systems, our mathematical notations, our languages, musical notations, all go back to that point. All these vehicles with which we communicate with each other. In the beginning, there was the circle. Now, the circle is actually not, strictly speaking, a shape, because it has no number associated with it. It's an idea, right? The circle, the idea of the circle, is quite a profound one because we've used it to represent things like the idea of nothing, zero. We talk about it in our vocabulary. We talk about work circles, social circles, knitting circles, family circles, because the energy of the circle is in there. We are getting together with those groups of people to share events in time. And through sharing events in time, things happen. We learn. Time progresses. A sequence of events happen. The bit in the middle is totally still and it's infinitely small. It's the moment, because you can't capture that moment. It's gone, it's come, it's gone, it's come. And everything is revolving around that moment. All the events. So there's a gas molecule moving over here, you're breathing over there, something's happening over there. All those events are happening in the same moment throughout the whole universe of the circle. So it's a bit like a rainstorm dropping water droplets, and all the droplets form these radial circles all around them. And so we've got this going on everywhere, all the events happening in the same moment. So the moment actually fills the whole circle. Can you see that? And this is one of those contradictions that is quite difficult to get your head around, because we have the moment, but it's filling the whole of eternity. The Tai Chi symbol. We have the two dots. They're still bound within the circle, because this is an illusion. It's all happening within the circle. Right? And the S here is that tension, that one can become the other instantaneously, up can then become down. And that also, there's always a bit of the other, the opposite within it. There's nothing, it's not a pure condition, there's always a bit of male and female and things like that. The Tai Chi symbol is fantastic at representing that. Well, 1 and 2 are known as the parents of all numbers. And through their combinations, we have all the other numbers that come along. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we get to 10 again. Now 10 is the beginning of the next cycle. And if you think about reality, all of this is about structure of reality. It's exactly what we do in our computer programs. We use ones and zeros to create other realities on computer screens. And they're pretty realistic, some of them, in terms of what they look like, and they get more and more realistic to the extent that people are getting completely absorbed in them, not actually living in this reality. Ones and zeros and duality are within everything else. You can't escape duality in this reality. It's with us. And this idea of non-duality and going back to Wu Chi, it's not something that we have. It's a condition of us. Otherwise we won't learn. We won't have love and hate. We won't have the ability to make choices. And the square is what gives us space. We have our workspace, we have our cooking space, we have our bed. We designate all these square areas where we go to do something, where we move to. So the circle and the square together with space and time, they allow events to happen in a particular location. They give us the facility to move. This gives us the facility to move around, to go over here, to go over there, up, down. There are tensions between the corners, and these corners are the foundations. They might be called the angels. They all have various names, but the cornerstones are what we lay out to designate an area, and then tension is formed between them, and it starts to box in energy. Circles bound energy as well, but they bind it in a different way because it's about community and connection and belonging. So this is why, like for in Islamic people, when they put out their rug, they're saying, this is my sacred space, I'm getting onto it. And then they roll it back up again. But if you leave squares around, what happens is the energy can stagnate, which is why Tai Chi is becoming so much more popular, because we've suddenly recognised that we've been throwing up these squares all over the place, and we have taken no consideration whatsoever for light and water and air and all the things that like to move around. X also marks the spot in the middle, the dot in the middle of the square. And the dot in the middle of the square is the here. So you're here, here, okay. And this is your plug-in point into space. You plug in. This is all about grounding. And a lot of people don't like squares. They don't like being grounded. It's lovely to be floaty and everything, but squares are all about grounding. But it's like anything else, like everything. There is a negative aspect to it as well. This is why sometimes where houses we can feel restricted by places, particularly square houses, and get so attached to them that we actually we find it difficult to move away from them or to move from them. And that's an interesting point, because if you think about it, when we were more nomadic, we used to have round buildings. We used to have teepees, yurts, igloos. Contains the most amount of space with the least amount of materials, so it's efficient to build them. And we used to move around an awful lot. As soon as we started to fix ourselves in space, we started to use square buildings. And then issues started to arise because we create boundaries.